Cowboy Ghost Rider, voiced by Ron Pearlman, in a procedurally generated roguelike twin-stick cover shooter. We played West of Dead, and this is our review. Now I know words like procedurally generated and roguelike and brutal difficulty, usually when gamers hear words like this, they instill a bit of fear, they instill a lack of confidence, but honestly, the combination works here in West of Dead. It's actually a really, really good game. But you do need to keep your wits about you because, like any roguelike, once you're dead, you're dead. You got to start all over again. Now, in West of Dead, you wake up as William Mason, who is voiced by the amazing Ron Pearlman, and you wake up in Purgatory, and your goal is to ultimately get your memory back slowly and work out how you ended up here. Now, this is the Wild West version of Purgatory. It's pretty cool. You start in a saloon or a bar, and you can have a conversation with the bartender, and as you progress through the game, you can actually kind of unlock more NPCs that you can sort of speak to in the bar as well. So after you've died, you end up back in the bar again, and there could be an NPC that you unlocked earlier who then might give out some advice for you. So you make your way through stages, which are procedurally generated, so it's different every single time you make your way through, and I can assure you, you'll be playing many, many times. And as you kill enemies, you collect iron throughout stages, and iron acts as the currency. You also get sin, which is dropped by random enemies, so it's not like only bosses drop it or whatever the case may be. You can also get it from regular enemies. And in between stages, you meet up with this witch who you can cleanse yourself of your sin. So the sin basically acts as upgrade points. So you can potentially maybe use, say, 10 sin for a health flask. And then what happens is you actually keep the health flask permanently, no matter how many times you die. So from that aspect, it's more of a roguelite as opposed to a roguelike. With roguelikes, you kind of just completely reset in between playthroughs, where with a roguelite, you do keep some upgrade elements to make each run a little bit easier. And I have to say, that's probably the first place you should spend your money on health flasks, because they really help you extend your time in the game in between deaths. Now, West of Dead, as you can see from the footage here, is a really good looking game. A very minimalist, cel-shaded look. You basically just get the visual information you need. Like, as you can see here, a lot of the screen is just black. So you're only seeing exactly what you need. And enemies also give like visual cues before attacking, as well as audio cues. But each stage, has a really distinctive look and has a unique signature to it. And the enemies have a surprising amount of variety. Some of them can look a little bit similar, but they're actually quite different when you look a little bit closer. The other great thing, and this is probably the best part about West of Dead, is the combat. The combat is really, really fun. The only downside is probably the melee. For some weird reason, despite the lack of buttons being used in this game, they actually don't have a dedicated melee button. So it's actually contextual. So if you get close to a door or you get close to a box that you need to break, then your triggers, which are normally for shooting, would become melee buttons. It can cause a few little minor issues. It's not a massive deal breaker or anything, but it can be a little bit annoying. It would have been nice to have had a dedicated melee button. Aside from that, it's awesome. Mason automatically goes into cover when he's near a box or a pillar or, any other dedicated cover item. You can hold one of your triggers to pop out and aim your gun, or you can sort of just press your trigger for a blind shot. It's very similar in a way to Halo Combat Evolved, in that you only get to carry 2 weapons, and you have to sort of really pick your weapons to suit your playstyle, or I guess pick your weapons to suit any given combat scenario, because weapons do also drop throughout the stage. You can also find like treasure chests. I guess they're not treasure chests, but they kind of are. And in those treasure chests, you may get a random weapon in there that could be better than yours. Like Alan Wake, you can also use light to stun enemies. So there's lights within stages that you can switch on, which will stun them, or you can carry a lantern, which can either be unlocked throughout stages, or you can find them during stages, and you can literally just like throw a lantern into a room and stun the enemies in it. It's actually pretty cool. I will say though that I did notice that there were some auto aim issues. So it's a twin stick shooter, but there is a touch of auto aim to it, and there were occasions where the auto aim got a little bit funny on me, which again caused a bit of frustration, caused me to lose some life here and there. But again, nothing deal breaking, and hopefully can be fixed with future patches. You can also upgrade yourself during stages at these what's called grow stations. You can choose between toughness, which is like a health upgrade, perception, which is where you increase your firearm damage, and resourcefulness, which is basically your ability upgrades. So as the stages are procedurally generated, the grow stages are in different places each time, and there aren't always the same number of them, so you should choose wisely. But again, it's not like you can learn a pattern, because if you die, you start all over again and everything will be in a different place. Now, the game is enjoyable enough to play where it's nowhere near as frustrating as I thought it would be to have to start all over again. Like, don't get me wrong, when you die, it's a killer, because especially if you've gotten quite far. But the fact that the game is so fun to play, it's not quite as annoying as I thought it would be, which is a good thing, because you're going to die, and you're probably going to die a lot. The game ultimately even sort of, it knows you're going to die. It admits that you're going to die, because it's actually got a dash of Metroidvania to it. And as you're making your way through stages very early on, you find areas you actually can't access, which tells you that the game already knows you are going to be back. It knows you're going to die. And then you might unlock a certain ability, and when you die, you come back to the first stage, and all of a sudden there's an area you can now access, which might push you a little bit further along, as opposed to having to make your way through each stage incrementally. So yeah, the game basically tells you you're going to die. The art of the game basically is in learning enemy patterns, hazards, and a weapon combination that suits your playstyle. I've made my way pretty far into the game with effectively the same two weapons the entire time, because you can also obviously upgrade them and get a lot stronger. But for those who like the extra thrill of the challenge, there are lost souls throughout the game that give you their burden. Now, this burden is basically an insta-death curse, and it can only be lifted when you kill 6 enemies without being hit. So once you accept the burden, you receive a bunch of weapons or upgrades or abilities that you can sort through and see what you want to keep or leave behind. So it's not just a challenge for the sake of being a challenge. You actually, get something out of it. I guess finishing up, West of Dead is a really, really enjoyable game, and it mainly hooks you with its combat. It's just really, really fun to play. And I understand the idea of starting all over again when you die can be a pretty brutal punishment, particularly when you found yourself nicely upgraded and powerful. But the game is more than fun enough for it to not detract from your enjoyment too much. And it's on Game Pass, so there's no excuse not to give it a go. As always, everyone, if you like our stuff, please like, subscribe, and be sure to visit XboxEra.com for more. Ciao for now.